Mom, I just want an Oscar.
The Academy Awards, the show we love to hate
Oh, wow.
and hate to love.
Moonlight, Best Picture.
Except for me, the Oscars are literally my Super Bowl. I love that show so much. In honor of the Oscars just being around the corner, I'm going to create the Hall of Fame of Oscar winners. I'll be taking what I consider to be the greatest winners of all time in the big 5 categories to compete against each other. I will then crown the ultimate winner with the Lucas. It's my version of the Oscar. And at the end of the video, I'll be giving a final Lucas to an entirely new category, so you're gonna wanna stick around for that. But before we get into it, I wanna offer a quick disclaimer. I'm not an Oscars expert, never claimed to be. I've seen a lot of movies in my life, but I have not seen every single movie. So if for some reason your favorite 1967 Best Supporting Actress was not mentioned in this video, I may or may not have seen it. I don't know, I'm sorry if I missed it, but we're honestly just kind of having fun here, and this is just a good excuse for me to talk about some of my favorite movies and performances of all time, so I'm sorry. If you're mad at this list, or if you're mad at my opinions, you could yell at me in the comments or just go on and make your own list. I don't really care. Since the Oscars are all about presentation, I decided to put together my own little show and ask my roommates to attend. Hello everyone. Hey guys, thanks for coming out. So today we're going to be doing the Oscar Winners Hall of Fame, better known as the Lucas. Does anyone have any like predictions or like excitement? Or
Curious about the name, like the Lucas.
It says Lucas's.
Sorry, yeah, that was a rough one.
All right, but first we're going to get into the best screenplay category. The nominees for this are Spotlight, Chinatown. No love for Spotlight or Chinatown or anything. All right, The Social Network, Sunset Boulevard, and Casablanca. I just want to specify, because I'm sure you guys were curious, this is a combination of both the best screenplay, original and adapted, just in case you guys were curious.
I wasn't.
Anyways, the best screenplay award goes to Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. It's hard to say anything new or insightful about Sunset Boulevard that hasn't already been said. Sunset Boulevard, by almost every standard, is one of, if not the best written screenplays of all time. The story is told through an omniscient narrator, who in the film's opening scene tells the audience that he will tell the true story of the mildly successful writer found floating in a silent film star's pool. The narrator seems to pity the man, but in the scene that follows, he switches from third to first person, revealing that this story will be told through the eyes of the dead man floating in the pool himself. Gillis is like many writers in Hollywood, the ones who aren't spoken about, the ones who grind project to project just to try to sell something so they can pay their rent, or in this case, pay off their car payments. Because if you lose your car in Los Angeles, it's like losing an arm and a leg. As Joe flees the men trying to repossess his car, he stumbles upon a decaying mansion, one that is seemingly vacant with only an old car in its garage. He believes it is the perfect place to store his hot vehicle, until a woman with an exaggerated transatlantic-like accent summons him into her home. Her butler, a man of few words, welcomes Joe inside. The home is frozen in time. A home that likely once held some of the biggest parties in town now appears to just be a decaying beauty. Joe meets the homeowner, Norma Desmond, an aging silent film star. In her pastime, she watches old films in her projection room, hangs out with her pet monkey, who tragically passed away hours before Joe's arrival, and writes a screenplay for her next film. But this isn't a comeback. The movies left her. She never left the movies.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
Joe sways her into hiring him to revise her screenplay, so they can both finally break back into Hollywood. Joe feels emasculated by this parasitical relationship he's found himself in. Ultimately, he needs money, but he doesn't like being spoiled. Norma is showering him with gifts that he never asked for. Instead of just being a hired writer, Joe becomes Norma's obsession. Sunset Boulevard is an extremely empathetic film. Though Norma can easily be dismissed as a crazy, narcissistic lunatic, she's just a lonely individual. Acting was her passion, and that validation that she became so used to was suddenly stripped away from her because she just wasn't good enough for the talking pictures. All Joe can do is write, and he just wanted to give the Hollywood dream his best shot. Sure, he got 1 or 2 movies off the ground, but it just isn't getting the job done. These two characters were seemingly brought together by fate, but they go on this downward spiral because they couldn't face the reality of their situations. Their time in Hollywood is up. Sunset Boulevard in 1950 is no different from the Sunset Boulevard that still exists today in Los Angeles. It's just one of the longest roads in a city filled with broken dreams. Sunset Boulevard just never gets old, and to this day is still the blueprint of what a perfect screenplay looks like. It is forever and probably always will be one of my favorite screenplays ever written. Best Director. Okay, the nominees are Steven Spielberg for Schindler's List, Elia Kazan for On the Waterfront, Mike Nichols for The Graduate, Jonathan Demme for Silence of the Lambs, Robert Wise for The Sound of Music. Demme's Silence of the Lambs is an absolute masterclass in suspense and camera movement. His use of point-of-view shots would make a TikTok creator have a stroke. With the film being centered around Clarice's desire to defy her gender and prove herself a worthy member of the FBI, which at the time is completely dominated by men, the constant gazing into the camera as it slowly pans around rooms is violently unnerving, as it forces the audience to become the subject of the male gaze. Not to mention, Demme also gets two of the most iconic performances of all time out of his leads. Anthony Hopkins delivers one of the greatest performances ever put to screen, all while staring right down the barrel of the lens. But besides Hopkins, Jodie Foster manages to walk the finest line between confidence and terror. Demme also constructs these scenes so meticulously, carefully choosing when to punch out of the point of view close-up and moving into a more voyeuristic vantage point. If you're not subjectively staring through Clarice's eyes, you're almost stalking her. Had JFK not come out this year, I would probably say this was robbed of the Best Editing Oscar. But since JFK is one of the greatest movies ever edited, I am not too bitter. Demme's ability to manipulate time and completely fool the audience as to what is taking place in any given scene is unbelievable here. There's no point in the movie where the audience can trust what is being portrayed on screen, because it's almost always fooling you. Best Actor, Daniel Day-Lewis for There Will Be Blood, Marlon Brando for On the Waterfront, Robert De Niro for Raging Bull, Anthony Hopkins for Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Yeah.
That picture's a lot.
Gregory Peck for To Kill a Mockingbird.
Or Hugh Jackman for the scene with the hammer in the bathroom.
Goated scene. Yeah, I've never seen the movie, but I did see the compilation.
I love boxers. I love communism. And, I love oil. Yeah. Anyways, Robert De Niro, Best Actor. I don't think it would be much of a stretch to claim that the 1981 Oscars were an absolute shame. Raging Bull just going entirely unrecognized, except in this category, is just really, really sad, to say the least. But thankfully, the backbone of this film, which is De Niro's performance, was recognized at the awards. This film quite literally does not exist without De Niro's performance. It was him that took the concept to Scorsese and begged him to direct it. Then they took Schrader's masterful script and modified it to help create the Jake LaMotta that we see on screen. De Niro invented a new form of acting to bring Raging Bull to life. The extremes he went through to create an authentic depiction of this character shouldn't be glorified, although they have been mimicked constantly since. In the film's beginning, his rage and jealousy is put on full display in both The Ring and his small New York apartment. But as the film carries out, he slowly starts to lose touch with the sport. De Niro himself puts on a ton of weight and wears a new nose prosthetic, fully becoming this aged, washed-up boxer the movie focuses on in its back half. He loses all sense of self and spends all his time at his club. His family leaves him, he has no friends, and he's forced to live out the remainder of his life thinking about what could have been. I think it's easy to draw a comparison between this performance and Brando's in On the Waterfront. Brando's character Terry suffers from the same question of what could have been. This produces an insecure masculinity that is shown in the characters and performances. But De Niro takes it one step further by laying the groundworks of a transformative role, something the Academy will come to love. Transformative performances aren't always super impressive. Honestly, sometimes they're kind of annoying, especially with the marketing and attention some of them get shown. But like, come on, imagine if every performance was as good as this one. I mean, we would just be living in such a better world. Such a shame. Vivian Leigh, Streetcar Named Desire. Elizabeth Taylor.
Watch this. Watch the color of all these photos.
Elizabeth Taylor for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Louis Fletcher for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
You get a bit of a tint on that one. Okay.
Digital. Natalie Portman for Black Swan.
Yeah, we just finally got something within the last 10 years.
Annie Hall, Diane Keaton.
Oh, brother.
Like 1970 something.
I'm going with One Flew for this one.
Care to elaborate?
No.
Okay. I have bad news for that.
It's
Wait.
the most mid.
If it's Streetcar Named Desire, I'm not going to be mad.
You're gonna be mad.
What do you think it is?
I'm pretty sure I saw it. But didn't you put Natalie Portman? Or did you not pick her? You picked her.
Mike Nichols took a huge risk casting Elizabeth Taylor as Martha in his debut film, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Although I believe it to be one of the greatest films ever made, I think in today's pop culture, it kind of is an outlier compared to a lot of the other movies on this list, so I'll give you a brief summary of what the film is about. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is Mike Nichols' adaptation of the play of the same name. The story takes place over the course of a night, following two couples, one young and one old. With the help of alcohol, they begin to unravel and the flaws within their relationships are slowly revealed to the audience. Elizabeth Taylor in the mid-1960s was considered to be one of the most beautiful women on the planet. So when it was announced that she would be playing the aging, battered Martha from the renowned play, many were shocked and didn't believe she was capable of it, even though she already had an Oscar under her belt. Especially at this time in the 1950s and 60s where tastes were changing and we were starting to see different stories get told, Elizabeth Taylor kind of represented the old guard of what once was popular. But she proved her doubters wrong. Taylor is completely transformative in this role, gaining 30 pounds and wearing heavy makeup where she becomes borderline unrecognizable. And with the help of her soon-to-be husband, Richard Burton, she gives one of my favorite performances, possibly my favorite performance ever put to film. She brings everything to this role. The countless monologues the screenplay asks her to deliver at some points are hilarious.
George here doesn't cotton too much to body talk. Paunchy here isn't too happy when the conversation moves to muscle. How much do you want?
But others desperate and gut-wrenching.
Who can keep learning the games we play as quickly as I can change them? Who can make me happy and I do not wish to be happy? And yes, I do wish to be happy.
If for some reason you haven't seen this movie yet, please go see it. I can't really give the performance justice without spoiling the entire thing, so please go watch it.
Time for Best Picture, and the nominees are Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, Titanic, Silence of the Lambs, The Sound of... Oh, you didn't like that one.
No, keep going, please.
The Sound of Music, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
You've watched that one, right?
Yes, I've seen all these movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Give me a plot summary right now.
Anyone have any predictions?
It's not what I think it is. I'm also gonna go for...
You guys know me so well it was Lord of the Rings.
Return of the King may seem like a weird selection for the top of this list because of the previous films I talked about, but let me just lay out the facts. Return of the King is the first ever fantasy film to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Return of the King also won a record 11 Academy Awards, and it holds the record for the largest sweep in Academy Award history, winning in all 11 categories it was nominated in. The completion of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and Return of the King itself was a massive feat in filmmaking and permanently changed how movies were made in the 21st century. Now, depending on who you ask, that might be a good or a bad thing, but I don't think it could really go unrecognized. The IP obsession of the 21st century has certainly halted the creation of original films, but this fact alone shouldn't take away from what Return of the King was able to achieve. The film contains the trilogy's most emotionally charged moments and greatest fight scenes maybe ever put to screen. Yes, Lord of the Rings is a true spectacle. It is a genre masterclass, but the scale of the story and the perfect execution of a trilogy deserves to take the top spot on this list, especially for what it would do for the Academy learning to love genre in its later years. But this wasn't the final award of the night. I still had one more trophy to hand out.
Alright guys, we have one last guy.
Where's Avatar?
Avatar is not on this list. Well, it's good news. We actually have the Lucas Cavanagh Inaugural Greatest Oscar Speech Award.
Say that word again?
The Lucas Cavanagh Inaugural Greatest
Nope, do it
Oscar
again.
Speech Award. The Lucas Cavanagh Inaugural Greatest
There we
Oscar
go.
Speech Award.
Better!
I think the Academy is a rightfully criticized institution. Whether it's for its lack of inclusion or its inevitable snubs and fumbles at the awards year by year, there's just an endless amount of work that would need to be done to perfect it.
So much bigger than me.
Not only does the emotion that Halle Berry brings to her speech reflect the historical significance of her win, but I believe it is reflective of the dreams that the Academy Awards were founded on. It is the ultimate recognition for its recipients' life work. As human beings, we are driven by feedback and validation. Sure, awards may be silly. They're a made-up concept voted on by people the audience doesn't even know, and you just get a silly little gold statue as a good job. But as a filmmaker myself, a lifelong dream of mine is to win an Oscar, and to be able to stand in front of my colleagues and all of my friends and family watching at home and just saying thank you. Thank you for recognizing me and all of my years of hard work. So I'll continue to romanticize getting my silly gold statue, and when my time comes, you guys can all say, "Boo, wrong guy won, this guy was robbed, worst director win in history."